My name is Logan Rader, this is Brooklyn Botz, and today we're joined by Carolyn Flynn and Mike Marcotte to discuss a new course called Innovations in Media Entrepreneurship and the Innovation Academy.
So can you start off by talking a little bit about the course and how you started it?
The course is sort of UNM's little burst of excitement. It's part of the Innovation Academy, which is kind of a startup within the university. And this particular class is going to be about how to start up a media company, essentially. So it's for people who really want to innovate and create and kind of try something new. And media is really the perfect place for this class to be happening because there's been so much disruption in media with the digital age that it presents a lot of new opportunities for creating new kinds of media products around a new revenue model.
Who is this class designed for?
Primarily, I think it would be designed for students of media, because if you're going into media, more and more these days, you're in charge of your own career, and your own career could be your own brand. You could be, a one-man band, freelancer. You could be running your own company. So more and more, with the way the business is going, we think individuals have to be kind of in charge of their career, not necessarily being groomed for working at a large company, but being groomed to work at a small company or be their own company. So media students, number one, but we think it might also attract other people who have a sort of a tech orientation, because most of the media opportunities right now are technology oriented. So media students, tech students, but maybe also business students who are just thinking about the next big thing and company money-making opportunities.
How did you guys come up with the idea for this course? Did you guys work together on it, or how did that happen?
I think it came out of, for me, from being in media since I was 17 years old and seeing all the changes and being kind of an entrepreneur for most of that career, meaning an entrepreneur who's within a company. So I had worked myself on many media startups as we've responded to changes in the market. And it came out of seeing sort of the rise and fall of many of those media enterprises and looking for new ways to innovate from within, and seeing so many things happening really out there with people with venture capital being poured into new media to companies, and just seeing what that means for the passion that people have for journalism if they can hook it on to some kind of new business model. I mean, it's really exciting. So it kind of came out of being part of that for many years and then having this question about what is possible and wanting really to kind of look ahead for communication and journalism students who may be in that situation themselves.
And to add on to that, so that I think does explain it well from kind of what's happening out there in journalism and the industry side and your experience. Also, something has been trending within journalism education at universities around the country, and it's this kind of how do you prepare the journalist of tomorrow? And journalism schools are going through an entirely new examination of what should be taught, what are the skills the students need. And one of the things that's being taught more and more these days, and we think we're one of the pioneers in this, is this area of entrepreneurship in journalism. So how to be your own company, how to be your own entrepreneur in the business.
If I could get you both to tell me what your job occupation, what your title is, who each of you are, and why you're interested in teaching this course. Carolyn, you can go first.
I'm a professor at UNM in communication and journalism. I'm an adjunct, and I teach creative concepts in the strategic communications arm, and I teach multimedia writing. I have been for much of my career in Albuquerque. I was at the Albuquerque Journal for 23 years and was editor of Sage magazine there, which was an innovative product and was very successful for about 23 years, and often would be the product that we would use to model and kind of develop a community around and kind of prototype some other types of products. So that's who I am.
Mike? Mike Marcotte. I'm the first professor of practice in journalism at the University of New Mexico. It's a new position. We hope to have a few more professors of practice. A professor of practice is somebody who comes from the industry into the academy to bring experience to bear. My background is primarily in public media, nonprofit media. I was the news director at NPR stations in Seattle and in San Diego. Before that, worked in Ohio. And I've transitioned into teaching. I also run my own company, as does Carolyn. It's a consulting business in which I consult with public media journalists around the country. Yeah, and I think that's the gist of it.
And why are you both interested in teaching this new course, Innovations in Media Entrepreneurship? Why are you both interested in this?
I think this is a really exciting time in the industry because we're now, the digital tools that we have are now the technology has matured to such a point that now people are asking the question of how can we do more than just replicate what we were doing with all the other media tools that we had? And how can we really start to use this as a tool that starts to change journalism itself and starts to exploit it? We've only just begun to see that, and it's a wonderful time to see what you can do and how you can really develop an audience around it. It's also a really good time for engagement. That is the big word in media, is you don't just offer a media product, you offer something that you can build a community around and people can be engaged. And what does that start to do to journalism?
So you guys both have your own companies, and you said they're entrepreneurs. So how would you describe what a media entrepreneur is? Like, how would you define it?
Fundamentally, an entrepreneur is somebody who creates something, okay? And an entrepreneur could be creating something for any number of purposes. Most are motivated, by creating a company to make some money, okay? Some entrepreneurs, though, are motivated by how do I change the world? How do I make the world a better place? They may go into nonprofit organizations, but still bring that sort of entrepreneurial mindset. An entrepreneur is an individual, okay, who can take what's there, catalyze it, and serve a need that exists in the community, an unmet need out there in the community. So we're trying to train people to figure out how to do that.
What do you have to offer entrepreneurs with this new course?
I would say an on-ramp, to how to think about it.
Yeah, that's a good way of describing it. I also think media is just so crucial it's an engine of the economy. And the person who would be coming at this, the student who would be coming more from the business side and going, I'm an entrepreneur, I just love to start things, I love to be part of companies, I love to see if I could just make this work, is probably going to be somebody who really loves media and understands the role that it plays in the economy. This course is very, very connected to the Innovation ABQ effort that the City of Albuquerque Economic Development Office is developing. And so it will be very immersed in the innovation corridor in Albuquerque. So there's going to be a lot of opportunities for collisions between different communities that haven't maybe been interacting before. There's going to be a lot of cross-pollination of ideas. So that, and that's the kind of thing that the entrepreneurial kind of personality loves to see happen, is what can I do with this? What can I do with a great media product, a great business plan, and some super wonderful technology?
Because the idea itself is not enough, okay? So this idea of creating networks, okay, and bringing together diverse groups of people with diverse ideas, and this idea of collision, the collision of ideas, okay, is how innovation works. In this economy, it's about your thinking, okay? It's about your creativity, okay? We identify a need, okay? What's the service that serves that need? Okay, and you have to get past sort of simple thinking about that and really start to understand the deeper, problem at play that you're trying to serve. So it's a process. We develop an entire process. So what do we offer the entrepreneur? I think it's that kind of playground, okay, the sandbox that you get in there and can be creative and think those thoughts, but also the networking to what's really happening in the economy right now.
So earlier you mentioned that now is a really good time for this course to come to start. So what do you think that what are the technological changes that make this course good? So what has happened that has made it a prime time for this course to start?
I think it's the maturation of the technology. And I think that there's so many innovators here, and that is one of the reasons we want to have those collisions in the innovation corridors, because then there's the opportunity to have a conversation of, could this media product be driven by an app? Just questions like that. One of the things, one component that we're really building into it is drawing upon design thinking, which involves more of a human-centric approach to designing the product in the first place. Meaning, what do you need from a media product? So the other question about why this course, why now, and why this time, I think also is because as the media industry has changed, there are some media products that have sort of vanished from the market here in New Mexico. And so there have been some innovations that have succeeded and failed, and that's left kind of this this audience then that may be wanting something. And so part of the process we'll be looking at what target audience is out there for media that isn't being done and what can be done. And that's where the sort of human-centric approach to having that kind of cross-pollinating of ideas with reader and media maker from the beginning, how does that change what is being offered?
There's an interesting dynamic also, I think, in the answer to your question, and that is, if you come with a history in media, as we do, you've seen a lot of change and a lot of fear and concern about, you know, the loss of jobs, and not just the loss of jobs. You know, I mean, I'm actually kind of worried about that, because what does that mean in terms of actual accountability in journalism? Okay. Who are the watchdogs if we don't have the healthy news organizations to kind of keep an eye on what's happening in our communities anymore? So part of this is fueled by this kind of like, how do you save journalism? Okay, how do you reinvent journalism? What's the future of journalism? And now that's my mindset because I come with that past, but if you take a young person today, I don't think they feel encumbered or burdened by that question so much as, what are the opportunities in journalism today? And you know, this idea that we've got tools that we've never had before, we've got connectivity that we've never had before, that's really exciting, that's very robust. So, you know, mix those together, and I think we've got a great laboratory experiment here.
Speaking about tools that we've never had before, what are some of the new media models that you see developing?
Oh, Vox. Ezra Klein and three of his friends get together, they get a bunch of venture capitalists, they start Vox. And that was in mid-2014, and now it's worth about $1 billion. And he's one of those people who's asking that question, okay, now we did this. We sort of replicated something that's a lot like what we knew before, because they're basically designed around 6 verticals, which means basically 6 niche markets in terms of content and in terms of revenue. And that's very similar to what other media products have done before. You know, you kind of build around a certain collection of interests, like business or lifestyle or restaurants or dining out or whatever it is. But now he's asking the question of, so now that we got this, how can we really make this work for the user? The person who's maybe following the conflict in Syria, but is not wanting the day-to-day headlines or the AP feed, but they're really wanting to get the best, most, the wisest things being written about Syria. And he's really kind of experimenting with this thing called Vox cards. So you really can get that thing that somebody wrote 10 days ago that maybe you didn't find on the internet because you're searching on your phone in a completely different way from every other person on the planet. And it's more about that curation. So he's kind of asking that question about how we can just be smarter and be more, serve people more. And that's just one example, but there are a lot of people who are trying some really crazy, wild things, and some of it's starting to stick.
Yeah, there's, boy, we could point in a lot of directions as to what's taking place out there in the media landscape. Mm-hmm. You know, personalized, customized content for you. You know, what do you want to see when you want to see it? And, you know, fast, instant, live, anywhere in the world. This idea of, you know, how do you use the knowledge of crowds, the crowdsourced approach. We used to call them citizen journalists, but everybody's a journalist who's got a camera and a microphone, you know, and a portable transmitter, you know, in their pocket. You know, building out models around that. That's scaling up very fast. We're seeing all kinds of iterations on that. you know, and then the business aspect of this, well, how do you make that pay? You know, what are people literally going to pay for, and how much will they pay per whatever? These become the interesting, you know, design questions for the entrepreneur. But wow, yeah, I mean, it's a whole new era.
So you just gave a couple of great examples. So how does this all change journalism for the better? I mean, how does it change journalism?
I think it could only be for the better. You know, I think most of the sort of the pain is behind us, and we've learned from the pain and just sort of trying a whole bunch of things, and some of it's worked and some of it hasn't. So I think it's a very exciting time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think I'm a little bit pessimistic and a little bit optimistic, and you know, right now I'm just kind of in this zone where it should be better. It should be better because more transparency, more knowledge, more connectivity, that would seem to be a good thing. But at the same time, you know, human tendencies to sort of indulge in you know, cat, you know, videos and the frivolous, and you know, not being able to pay for in-depth journalism. Okay. One of the reasons we see the nonprofit news sector growing is because many people are very mindful that we need in-depth investigative journalism. They see the organizations of the past that used to do that as part of, you know, a whole bundled set of journalistic services, not being able to afford to do that anymore. So it's become this more niche-oriented. But we're seeing a lot of those, and money is kind of pouring into those. So there's some destruction, but there's also some new creation. So I worry about the depth of quality of journalism. I worry about superficiality of journalism, the infotainment of journalism. But we've always had those concerns, and I think there's always going to be a place, and there's going to be a market and a need for, you know, the opposite, the in-depth work.
I think that the journalism itself needs to be trumpeting just that this takes time to do it well, and to do it with substance, and to do it in a way that it's relevant and it matters. That takes time. It's not just something that you can just take a picture on your phone and, you know, this is news. But at the same time, what we're really sort of hearing from communities is there has been a lot of disenfranchisement, where people have felt like they aren't participating in journalism and that they aren't being covered. And this is kind of an opportunity once that we can, maybe in this class, in this laboratory, we can start to ask those questions of who feels like they are not having a voice and not being covered. And when they are being covered, they participate. And when they are participating, it's because of something that's relevant to their lives. So there are a lot of stories that aren't being done, and we want to figure out how doing those stories can actually be something that can be monetized.
How will this course, Innovations in Media Entrepreneurship, be structured? How's the course going to be structured as a whole?
Innovatively.
We have a plan.
Yeah.
Our basic design is kind of a three-stage plan. And the first stage is more of the survey part of the course. Let's bring in entrepreneurs. Let's you know, examine what's going on out there. Let's read up. And as part of that section of the course, we want to use the New Mexico Newsport, the online portal from communication journalism, as kind of a blog site, so we can be kind of having a conversation, not just in the class, but outside with the community. In the second part is the design thinking that Carolyn was talking about, where we literally talk about the process, okay, of understanding who my user is, then bringing that in, defining the problem, then going through the ideation phase where you're starting to think about, well, this is a solution. You just generate all these ideas. Then you start to sculpt that into an actual prototype. So that process of design thinking is the second part. And then the third part should be interesting. This is kind of our you know, kind of get your elevator pitch kind of working.
Yeah. A little Shark Tank, maybe.
A little Shark Tank.
Nicer.
Yeah.
Nicer than Shark Tank.
So you just kind of talked about a three-phase plan for the course. How will interactivity be integrated into the course?
Let me think about that.
I think it's pretty baked in myself.
I think it's so embedded that, yeah.
Because there'll be teamwork in the classroom among the participants. We're going to be out in the community, even though we've got kind of these state-of-the-art classrooms that promote interactivity and teamwork. We're also going to be going down to Fat Pipe and other sites around Albuquerque. So again, we're more embedded in the conversation that's happening right now in Innovate Albuquerque. I'd like to see us, if we don't have somebody, an expert, visit us in person, we Skype them in or have a Google Hangout. So we, use the tools of media to have, kind of a broader conversation. Well, I mentioned the Newsport as a way to kind of broadcast out what we're doing, to kind of, share that out. So that's a lot of interactivity, I think.
Tweeting.
Oh, and tweet freely. Oh, that reminds me. No, I just,
Will you plan to bring in speakers from outside?
Absolutely.
What will those speakers be like?
Where we want to go is we want to go into successes and setbacks. And we really want to ask people who have been in media and have innovated to reflect on things and perhaps answer questions that they have not answered before. So we're hoping some of these stories end up being newsy little stories on New Mexico Newsport as well. But it's really about asking those probing, penetrating questions so that we can begin by learning from other people's successes and setbacks. Largely in New Mexico, so it'll be a survey really of the New Mexico media landscape, of what is still sticking around and what has gone dark, because there are a few publications that went dark just earlier this year, and so we'll be talking to those people.
So how are you guys going to try and promote the course inside and outside of UNM?
well, we're counting on the Innovation Academy to help us with that. They are set up to really reach, all students on campus through the auspices of Innovation Academy. That is a unit that's, built into the provost's office. It's a new unit to kind of come up with these sorts of courses. So that's one way. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, any way we can get the word out. We'll have some flyers. We'll be putting, we'll be in the catalog. I don't know. We're open to ideas to get the word out there. Hopefully this helps.
Yeah, this helps.
When is the course, and is it also offered as an online course?
It is Fridays from 1 to 3:30 p.m. and our home base will be the Collaborative Teaching Lab, but we will be immersing ourselves in the innovation corridor in Albuquerque. So we'll be meeting in many different places so we can have those little collisions.
Yeah, it's not online. It's not an online course. We have, I think, seats for 25,
that's
something
right.
like that. I think that's what we're aiming for. And if we didn't say it, it's spring 2016. And it's never been done before, so this is our first time out, and still kind of an experiment.
So are there any special fees or prerequisites associated with the course, or are you just trying to reach anybody who's interested?
No fees, no prereqs. It's designed to be interdisciplinary. We imagine that people will probably be coming from communication and journalism or from business. Mm-hmm. But I think because of it, there's a design aspect to this. Could be very, very interesting if you're in architecture or engineering or art school. Just using those kinds of methods to solve problems. If you have some kind of interest also maybe in business or media, that could be very attractive to somebody who's really looking to do that. Also, it's part of the Innovation Academy, which is, it's actually, there are innovation scholars who can receive a degree designation along with their bachelor's degree. And so there may be some people who are, purely into Innovation Academy just for the experience of being an innovator who are interested in doing this.
Will you work with potential investors, like angel investors or venture capital investors or anything?
I think that's a great question. I don't think we're going to get to the end of 15 weeks and kind of be at that point where we're ready to introduce students to venture capitalists. Like I said, I think this is a little bit more of an on-ramp, and I think they can see, having completed this course, what the steps are, and they might Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't have some venture capitalists come in and speak. I think that would be great. But I don't think we're trying to sort of get to the end of this like an incubator, like an accelerator, and say, okay, on the last day, all the venture capitalists are coming in and you're going to pitch your product. I think that's a little bit ambitious. Who knows? Maybe there's an entrepreneur or two in the room that are that far along in their thinking they want to be at that point. But I don't think that's in our design, is to try to kind of create the on-ramp to that point.
We will be talking to people who have used venture capitalists to get their media products started up. So we will be getting that side of the experience about what it's like. How do you ask for that? And how do you ask again when you run out of money from the first round and you need a second round of cash?
Can y'all just tell us real quick what venture capital is?
Well, that's where you have somebody with deep pockets, okay, and they basically, it's not their money, it's they get other investors and they aggregate this money and they basically say, we're willing to put this money into your business for a stake of ownership, okay? They put the money in because they want to, they want to increase it coming back out.
So the entrepreneurs in your guys' class, will they get legal help and business help for their ideas that they pitch or anything like that?
That's a good question. I don't think we've talked about the
Well,
plan to that level.
Well,
We're still making this up as we go.
Well, the Innovation Academy offers a lot of resources too that they can draw upon. For instance, they have some intellectual property lawyers from the law school who have spoken at the startup school that's been meeting this fall in the Innovation Corridor. So there are resources like that we can tap into, because having a good understanding of intellectual property will be kind of important. But we'll touch on these things.
I think, again, where that's something an accelerator would do, we're a step, short of that. But again, it's about networking. It's about understanding, having a mental map of these resources. So telling students, that these resources exist, here they are, here's what they do, and at least giving them some exposure and contact to these resources.
Part of being a good journalist is knowing all the questions to ask. You don't have to have all the answers, just have all the questions. So I think a lot of this will be preparing students to have those questions and to know where they need to go to ask those questions.
Is there anything else you'd like to say about the Innovation Academy or Innovations in Media Entrepreneurship before we end?
Don't miss it. It really is UNM's burst of excitement. And it's a really good time to be right there at this whole intersection of entrepreneurship and media.
Yeah, I think this is very cutting edge for UNM. I think we are right up there with those universities that are figuring out, kind of how to prepare the journalists of tomorrow for tomorrow. This is our first time out on this, so it is an experiment, but if all goes well, hopefully it'll be back for another iteration.
Awesome. On behalf of Logan, Rader, and myself, thank you guys for coming out today and giving us this information about the entrepreneurship.
Thank you.